but you're getting all of this nutrition. What may be limited in a plant-based diet? Here are all the vitamins and minerals that we know that are essential. And here are the nutrients that we need to kind of pay extra attention to on a plant-based diet. No diet is perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect diet. So what do we need to pay attention to specifically on a plant-based diet, right? On a standard Western diet, it's very low. It may be high in protein, all those other things that people always tout the benefits, and B12, but it's also low in folate and fiber and vitamin C. And those are really high risk situations as well. So if we are on a plant-based diet, these are the things to be noted and pay attention to. So I'm going to talk about these specifically. Vitamin B12. There is no debate about B12. If you are on a plant-based diet, or anyone over the age of 50, anyone, no matter what your diet, needs to supplement with B12 to avoid potentially irreversible neurological impairment. The safest, most effective, most cost-effective, and convenient way to do so is just to take a supplement. And because it's the pickiest vitamin with a really interesting absorption curve, I always call it very finicky vitamin. It's got this attitude problem because it absorbs in a weird way. This is super complicated. We don't have to get into it, but basically this translates into, this is the optimal way to supplement. Either if you like to take more pills, you could do 50 micrograms twice a day, 150 micrograms once a day, or 2,000 or 2,500 micrograms once a week if you just want to pop one pill. And that's just due to its absorption curve. But it's water soluble, so we don't really see toxicity in vitamin B12. It's very, very rare if it happens at all. Your body will excrete the excess, and that's important. You won't see B12 show up as low in your blood work per se, because it's got this weird lag time. So it'll stay in your bloodstream for longer. So if you haven't been taking B12 and you're over 50 or you're on a vegan diet for a few years, you may not see it depleted in your bloodstream. So you need to be mindful of this. This is why we see like about 50, last I checked, it was about 50% of vegans having a B12 deficiency. And it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. I've actually seen it happen in one client who refused to take her supplements, and she got lucky because we caught it quickly enough. So be mindful of your B12. Vitamin D is more complex, however, because first of all, it's a fat soluble nutrient, and we make vitamin D naturally in our skin. When our skin is exposed to the sun, the UVB rays, our skin absorbs it and it converts it in the liver and kidneys into the active form. But because of a lot of different variables, like most of us are avoiding the sun because of risk for skin cancer. Many of us are not at a good latitude for sun absorption. Fog or smog. I live in Los Angeles. I live in the perfect latitude for sun absorption, and we have sun, 380 days of the year. Today's not one of them, but most of the days of the year we have sun. And I still see so much vitamin D deficiency here just because of all those other things we smother our skin with sunscreen. Excess fat on the skin impairs absorption. The darker your skin, the more you need. So there's different variables that happen, but it's not something you want to blindly supplement like B12, because you want to know what your blood work looks like. So I have my clients test their vitamin D levels, so you're not supplementing blindly. You don't want to you can have excessive vitamin D toxicity. So you don't want to do that as well. You can, a 2,000 IU a day is okay for regular supplementing for most people. But again, please have your blood checked and don't dose blindly. Sometimes you need to bring your levels up. Vitamin D is increasingly being seen as important for all sorts of things, like even with our risk for COVID and our risk for, all sorts of things, immune-wise, and all sorts of things. Our bone health, you need your vitamin D levels to be adequate to absorb the calcium that you take in your food. There's so many reasons to have optimal levels of vitamin D, and so many people don't, that it is worth investigating for yourself. Vitamin K, like I said before, you get plenty of vitamin K1 from phylloquinone, all those gorgeous green vegetables. But there's an interesting kind of thing about vitamin K2. Now, we need vitamin K for all sorts of vitamin K dependent proteins, such as those that are involved in clotting. When I was in grad school, we learned clotting and cardiovascular function. That's where K comes in, but also for bone health. And so it turns out that we need both forms of vitamin K, K1 phylloquinone, and then K2, which is menaquinone, which is produced from a bacteria. So if you like that stuff in that picture called, what's that called? I don't like it, so I don't remember what it's called. There's one form of it. I have it written somewhere. That's so funny. I don't have it here. What is that? Natto. It's natto. Sorry, natto. If you like natto and you can get natto, that's a source of K2, but we don't really get it on a plant-based diet. That's why it is something to consider supplementing, because K2 seems to really your cardiovascular system is going to prioritize the K. And so then the bone health might suffer. So it's something to consider, is supplementing with K2, but we don't really know for sure how necessary that is. So it's something to consider. And then the two minerals we need to be considered of on a plant-based diet include zinc and iodine. Zinc is an essential trace mineral. We need it for immune function. We've all heard it talked about a lot in the last 2 years because of our immunity. We do need zinc for that. We need it for neurological function. We need it for growth when we're pregnant. Plant sources of zinc, like I mentioned before, are the nuts and seeds and legumes. But because those foods tend to have so much fiber and they have these things called phytates, it may mean that we are not absorbing as much zinc as we need to. So you can either eat more of those foods or consider supplementing. And iodine is interesting. We need iodine for our thyroid hormones and our metabolism and neurological function. And we need about 150 micrograms a day as an adult. But what's interesting is that a lot of people are cutting out salt because of their high blood pressure or because they're salt sensitive. Or interestingly, they're using these fancy salts. We were asked about that on the panel last night. People are using Himalayan pink salt or black lava salt and all those. Those are not iodized. And that's why we iodized salts many years ago, was because of this iodine deficiency that we see. I'm seeing a little bit more goiters take place lately because I think this is the reason. So iodine is really important to be mindful of. You can get it from iodized salt. You can get it from sea vegetables, although the dosing tends to be kind of all over the place with that. So read the labels carefully, or you can consider supplementing as well. By the way, those 5 micronutrients, vitamin B12, D, K2, iodine, and zinc, can be found. You can get it in a multivitamin. I have most of my clients just supplement. I supplement with a multivitamin that has all of those things in just the right doses, not too much. And just all of those things can be easily, just, you don't have to think about it after that. You just can take a supplement, or you could look at it piece by piece. The one macronutrient that we talk about as potentially being low in vegans, and when you look at the blood of vegans, we do have lower levels of the long chain omega-3 fats, EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, the longer form, docosahexaenoic acid. So when we take it in from alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, from walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, soy foods have all the ALA in there, we need to elongate it into EPA and then DHA. But because we have lower levels of that on a vegan diet, we don't know if that's important because vegans seem to obviously have a lower incidence and prevalence of cardiovascular disease, possibly Alzheimer's, and things that are associated with this nutrients. We don't know if it's necessarily necessary. So I tend to go with the recommendation of take an EPA DHA microalgae formula a few times a week, just in case. We don't really necessarily know that conclusively yet. So remember, plan, practice, persist. This is all you really need to think about on a plant-based diet, keeping it super simple, eating a diet of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices in infinite tasty combinations, prioritizing the 6 daily threes, and being notable about those nutrients, those specific nutrients. But Aristotle insisted that virtues are formed in man by his doing the actions. And Will Durant, the famous historian, reflected on these writings and said that excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have those because we have acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. So excellence then is not an act, but a habit. For us to be successful with a whole food plant-based diet, we just need to plan, practice, and persist. Until the new lifestyle is equally convenient, familiar, and enjoyable, we don't really have to choose. One of these 3 things will dominate the plate. Success requires that you create a simple plan, you practice making complaints easy and permanent, and most importantly, persist with increasing variety in flavor, color, and texture. These habits will slowly displace the old habits, and it is really a super simple thing to do.